All right, lesson two reasons for customer persona as it pertains to cold email. So like I talked about in some of the other lessons, targeting your customer by marketing channel is going to be different for each one. So in this, how it relates to cold email, how are we going to be targeting them? Well, obviously we're going to be targeting them by demographic. This is going to be so that we can locate them. We know who they are. We know that they're the ones that want to buy our product, right? But the other reason that we want to know their demographics, we need to know the actual business that's going to buy this. Who's the business in the business that's going to be buying this, and who's the first point of contact. So somebody actually might make the buying decision, but they might not be the first point of contact. So we need to know the demographics, obviously, so we know who to sell to. But then we need to know the demographics so that we can make a determining factor on which one is going to be effective for the cold email channel for marketing. So let me explain real quick. Let's say we're going to target startups. I've done this in the past a lot of times. Startups tend to be very visible in the public. Their emails are pretty typical. They use a syntax that's pretty easy to guess, and we can find their data and information in a lot of directories and online. That would be a good example of, okay, we identified startups as being a good demographic. We've identified it's going to be a startup 1 to 10 employees. We're going to contact the founder. That's what we're going to do. That we identify as one channel. Let's say for the flip side of that, we go after and decide that our demographic is a bunch of dentists, right? Well, dentists don't tend to be so visible online. They're in business. They're sort of business people, sort of not. They're in a trade. But the thing about dentists, it's a little weird, and I have experience in this. A lot of them will operate by their Hotmail accounts that they had, back in the early days. They're old school dudes. They don't use the typical email stuff. They're not so visible. So when we're lining up a bunch of different demographics, that would be one example of, okay, maybe this channel is not good for dentists. Or if we're going to think about dentists, maybe we need to start targeting them in purchased lists because they're enrolling to certain trade organizations, and then that trading organization information gets shared or purchased by one of these databases of contacts. So let's just, in the term of cold email, that's what I'm talking about. We need to get our demographic right, and we need to choose which one we're going to go after as it relates to cold email. Next one is understanding what motivates your customer. So this really comes down to a few things. What are the pains, the customer problem? What are the gains, the customer solution that you offer? And the problems and needs that they're trying to get done on an everyday basis. So this is part of the planning. Do you fit into those molds for those customers? And what messaging are we going to be able to position using cold email to make it into them? So let's get into the planning, the actual planning. But that's how I wanted to take a second. It relates to cold email. And that's it. Let's get into lesson 3.